So as you know, we're recording this, I mentioned to you.
And by the way, I get a message about that, so I have to say continue to consent to be recorded.
Perfect.
Yeah, perfect. So we're good.
And I'm not really in a hurry, so unless you are, I don't feel like we need to jump right into, business per se.
Right.
So anyway, so things are good for you?
Doing good, yeah. Yeah, getting ready for the 4th. Just came back from a trip to Denver to see my daughter and son-in-law, and we went to a ball game the other day, so it's been a pretty easygoing week so far.
Yeah, mine has been, well, yesterday and today I slammed in a whole bunch of appointments, but I think you're the last one on my calendar till Friday, so I'm good.
Okay, that's good. I guess that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, yep. Save the best for last.
There you go. I was going to say that, but I wanted to be humble. So.
Yeah, who needs modesty anyway, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Hey, I have an extra monitor here, and I've got some photos on it at the right time. So just FYI, I may switch the machine briefly and then come back. So,
if you have the ability to share your screen, if you know how to do that, feel free to do it.
Okay. I think I can. I'll play with the settings while we're yapping here.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay. I'm going to go off full screen for a second.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, let's try this and see how it goes. This should work.
Yep.
Can you see that?
I can. I just have a little blue. It's coming in. There we go.
Right there.
Go. Wow. Yep.
Okay.
I lost it for a second.
Yeah, because I went back to the other screen because I'm getting signals on both screens. I'm trying to figure it out. What I can do, this is just a demo, but I can do this later when you're ready because I've got 3 photos I thought I'd show you.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
But you went small. There you go.
All right, so I'm going to click on Stop Share, and you should see me again.
Yep, you're full. Yep.
Okay, so we'll work it out. Great.
Praise the Lord. Well, so let's dive into this. The purpose of this call, hello everybody. The purpose of this call is to spend a couple minutes with Sid here, and he has a story to tell, and I would like to share it with you guys. And it's kind of a casual conversation per se, something that you would experience maybe in a coffee shop, and we want to bring it to you, to your computer, to your room. So anyway, Mr. Sid, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from and how we've come to this point.
Yeah, I'll tell you about my sordid life. I'm an Air Force brat and have lived around the world. I was born in Texas. I went to high school in Florida. You're from Sarasota, right? Did I see that right?
Yes.
Went to high school in St. Pete, went to Florida State, and then went to graduate school in Dallas after that. But pretty much my life story has been living all over the place as a kid and as an adult. And we've been in Colorado mostly since 2010. But have spent 20 years in North Georgia, lived in Pensacola, lived in Los Alamos, New Mexico, and California and Spain, and there's kind of a lot of different places. So I'm a nomad.
So you know what this is?
I do, yeah. I sure do. I do it all the time.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So tell us how you and I got connected and how we met and where we've been on our journey, for the brief time we've known each other.
Yeah, so I came to Colorado in 2010 to consult here and base out of Colorado. And it was kind of open-ended. It wasn't necessarily intended to be for the rest of our lives, but we felt drawn to Colorado Springs and moved here in 2010. And you and I connected actually recently through a friend of ours because I was talking about my story. And the twist in my story is that in 2013, we had just moved to a new house on a hill in Black Forest with 5 acres, thousands of trees. It seemed like it was really a beautiful place. And we'd only been there 3 months and had moved all of our stuff from Georgia, from storage out to Colorado, and I had just gotten everything together. And on June 9th, 2013, my wife and I are sitting on the balcony upstairs, and we're looking at the sun setting over, Pikes Peak. We're looking at the beauty, and I've got a BB gun, and I'm shooting pine cones with my BB gun, practice my trigger discipline. And I looked at her and I said, you know what? This place is heaven on earth. I could live here the rest of my life. I wonder if they do a lease purchase on this property, because I want to live here the rest of my life. The Nomad has finally found a place to settle down. And that was a Sunday night, and Tuesday afternoon around 2:25, our house was one of the first to catch fire in the Black Forest wildfire, which, as you probably know, is the most destructive in Colorado history. And that afternoon, we saw it on television. Actually, we were out that day. We weren't at the house, which was a blessing. But a friend said, come over and make our house your home. And we went over there, and he said, I've seen your home. And I said, you're crazy. He's like, no, take a look at this. And sure enough, on his television was our house burning. There was no doubt about it. So that afternoon, we had visual confirmation that the house was on fire. And of course, you don't know how badly until you get back to it. And then they showed the picture and the video of our house burning on the news for the next 2 years. So we watched it over and over and over. So it was the gift that kept on giving. We basically never could escape it. So it's been a wild ride, and it's been interesting. So you may remember 2 people in the community died from the fire. So the police cordoned off our area as a crime scene, and it was a week before, first of all, before it cooled down enough for us to get back to our street. We were basically at ground zero. And then because of the deaths, they had to investigate. So finally, a week later, they let us go in under police protection for 3 hours, and then we had to leave. So the idea was, don't dig up anything, just see what the damage is that you're going to back to. So in the meantime, I had talked to a friend who was a builder, and he had worked the Waldo Canyon aftermath. And he told me, don't worry too much, like your books, they'll be charred on the outside, but on the inside, they will have survived. And we got back there and realized the fire had burned at over 2,500 degrees, up to 3,000 degrees, and went through the property several times. So nothing really substantial survived. And my library was turned to powder, basically. So
I love my library.
Yeah, enjoy it while you got it. I mean, it just like that. And turned to ash to powder. And I knew I was digging in my library when the ash went from darker gray to lighter gray. And I realized it might hit my books and everything else. So it was wild. And then with all the evidence visually, it gave me a chance to make presentations about building what matters in life, but also to really be able to relate to people that are struggling from disaster, because ours was sudden and it was comprehensive. The damage was amazingly devastating. So it's been a wild ride. And then we had, I can go into more detail, but we had even supernatural things happen when I was digging in the ash of the fire site. And so finally last year I wrote my book about the story about how loss and significance intersected in my life. And so I wrote the book Nomad's Fire, basically playing on the idea that, here I am saying I could live here forever, and 2 days later, boom, it's all gone.
So where can they find that book, Nomad's Fire, if they wanted to pick up a copy?
Nomad's Fire, if you don't mind, I'll show you a copy of it like that.
Yeah.
It's available on Amazon, bit.ly/nomadsfire. So Sid Webb is the author, and you can get it on Amazon. And It might be hard to see, but there's a twist in the image on the book cover. There are flames, but if you look closer, they're actually souls going up. And so the question is, what actually goes up eternally? That's the question, and so it's kind of an interesting way to do it. So
yeah, so the fire was a catastrophic, event for you. What was that as far as a turning point? As far as coming into the book, what did the fire was just an event, right? As far as in your life, what does it mean to you beyond that, as far as where you're at now?
Yeah, that raises questions that are related to personal significance, life arc, the story of our life and everything else. So there's a couple of sides. Let me kind of answer that quickly and then go to something a little more involved, if I may. The bigger thing about the fire, is, it's a question for me, and it was for me. This was 6 years ago, but it still persists. It's like, what do I do now? Because we heard people over and over say, oh, it must have been horrible looking at the smoke. Because, I mean, we tried to get there. We were stopped at the base of the hill. We went to another place. You could see the smoke on the hill. You could see the column, but you couldn't really tell, like, you know, we knew our house was under there, but how bad is it? You know, we don't see it. And so people would say, it must have been terrible thinking about the specific things you were losing. And that's actually not what was going through my mind. I was more in task mode. I was thinking about, what do I do now? Because obviously my life has had a major reboot. No matter what do I do now?
Sure.
What's the story? And at my age in life and my career, it's like, well, this didn't happen when I was a young pup, and it didn't happen in the middle of my career. Now that I'm in my early 60s, it's like, well, you know, this makes things really interesting. You know, where do we go next? And so that's been it. I mean, I can go on and on, but that's kind of the quick thing. If I can add to that, though, I think this is really important. It goes back a bit. Because I was a nomad, you know, military brat, and lived all over, and my father was in 3 wars, and we had a kind of a sometimes challenging relationship. The issue of home has always been a big issue to me, because I really have no hometown. I mean, I've got relatives in certain places, but those homes are not really my hometown. St. Pete, my family's all moved out of there. That's not my home, really. I'll probably never go back.
Too many bugs.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't really have a home. And so to have a place where you think, I'm willing to live for the rest of my life, and then have it taken away, I mean, that's crazy. And the other thing, my wife actually fingered this one day. She said, you know, it's interesting, I'm nostalgic, but it's because I don't have that strong attachment. And so some of the things I had, I mean, we had downsized, but, you know, some of the things I had tied me to the past, because I had no tie down in terms of a home. And those were all obliterated. Now, I could go in a lot of detail. My dad's casket flag. I have a Soviet police uniform that was given to me by a Soviet in Russia. And he was like, I want you to have this and remember me. I mean, it's one of a kind. Some weapons I had were one of a kind. I mean, just on and on. So to have them all taken away was crazy.
I couldn't even begin to imagine. I couldn't begin to imagine. So go on from there.
Yeah, so, and I hear that from people. It's like, well, let me write a book and make you think about it a little bit. I connected not long ago with a lady in the panhandle of Florida who wrote an article for the Tallahassee newspaper, because she was right in the middle of the area that got hit by Hurricane Michael, and the feds have been very slow to give them help. And so months later, people are living under tarps and stuff like that. It's pretty brutal. And, you know, she was like, we're beyond wit's end. We're at the point where we just have no emotional margin anymore. We're at the breaking point. And I reached out to her and said, you know, I can kind of relate. I would love to speak to your community. I sent her a copy of the book. She's trying to write about it, try to get all those emotions out. So it gave me the ability to relate to people in a new way, and that's been good. And honestly, I mean, it was bad, but it could have been worse in different ways. And it gave me an appreciation for what people go through that are really suffering. And I watched also how the community reached out to us, Colorado Springs, and immediately how family and friends reached out to us. And I felt extremely blessed. I mean, there was a point, and I'm not kidding when I say this, I was in the ash digging one day, and the story's in the book, so I won't go into too much detail, but I basically said, you know what, as I think about how I have been blessed by people after the fire, I'm the most blessed man in the world right now, even though I lost everything. I mean, I felt that way. And also, and again, you'd have to get a book, but forgive the shameless plug for the book, but still, the things I gave away before the fire were the things I got back after the fire, physically and metaphorically. Or metaphysically, it was like the first afternoon, these friends had come over to our house and make it your home. So we get over there. He's like, I got your T-shirts. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. I was getting rid of T-shirts and I gave them to you because you seem to want them. Well, all of a sudden I'm getting them back, you know, and there were a lot of things like that because I'd given something away before the fire. I got it back afterwards.
Kind of like cast your bread on the water, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to, I know you had previously mentioned in one of our earlier conversations, the stop sign, right? You coming up to the stop sign, situational awareness. Do you want to talk about that for a little bit or a second?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. And I'd also like to do a plug for one of my favorite books. I didn't write it. I get no money from this, but it's called Deep Survival. And the subtitle is Who Lives, Who Dies, and Why? Deep Survival by Lawrence Gonzalez. And I read it a number of years ago, and out of many things, one thing that really stood out in the book, he basically is talking about why do people get in trouble to begin with, and then why do some people make it and some people don't? And situational awareness was a part of it, but he also in there has something that stuck with me for years, the concept of what it means to be lost. And when I work like consulting with organizations, I'll talk to them about this. The idea is you have a mental image of where you are, but if it does not really correspond to the physical reality that you're in, then you're lost because you think you're somewhere, but actually you're somewhere else. And so that afternoon, first of all, the luncheon that my wife and I were at that day was hearing Jerry Marr speak. And Jerry Marr was the federal Type 1 incident commander from the Waldo Canyon fire the year before. And I kid you not,
Right.
This is one of many surreal things. She's talking about what she learned about leadership fighting the Waldo Canyon fire. So I took some notes and all that. And so when I'm standing there, we get up to Black Forest Regional Park, and a policeman's kind of nervous, and he stops us. He's like, you can't go any further. So we're like, we're not going up the hill. And I pull over to the side of the park and get out of the car, and I see in front of me up the hill this roiling, burning, dark, churning smoke from the fire that looks like it's alive. It's like a person, and it's moving, and it's twisting, and it looks really, really mad. So I'm seeing that up there. I'm seeing cars drive away from it, escaping. And I look behind me and I see cars driving up, basically the people that wanted to get to Black Forest to get to their stuff and all that. And I thought, I have to keep my situational awareness. There's nothing I can do here. And that's a step of humility to basically say, we try to fix things, but I can't fix anything here. There's nothing I can do. They won't let me back to the house. I'm useless, but I could be trapped because the fire is moving. It's moving maybe in our direction. People are coming in from all different sides. We could easily get trapped and then not be able to get out. So.
Oh, a traffic jam.
Yeah. So let's get out of it. In fact, the other day, this is interesting. I had coffee with a policeman who worked the fire, and he said, frankly, we were afraid we were going to get killed. And I said, by the fire? And he's like, no, by hostile homeowners. He said it was that bad. There was a lot of anger and hostility and panic and everything else. And so I'm thinking, I don't want to be that person. There's nothing I can do. I'm going to accept that and just get out of the area. And so that's what we did.
Yeah. Wow. So you had mentioned something, building what matters. You want to delve into that a little bit?
Yeah. After the fire, I thought about that a lot. I thought, I've got the photographic and video evidence. Denver Post and Denver TV news stations had taken some great photographs in the air. And I got photos there, and then I had my own photos I had taken. If I did not have those, I think we would have walked away from the fire and probably not talked about it much. But I thought, I have an opportunity to challenge people to build what counts in life because, okay, however it shakes out, this is going to be the destiny of what we have. We're not going to hold on to it forever, right? Not the material possessions. And if you're not focusing on what really matters in life beyond the material, then I think you're missing out what really matters. So I put that stuff together in a presentation, and that summer, ironically, had a chance to go to Sri Lanka, Nepal, India, and ended up going to China unexpectedly, and had a chance one evening, totally unplanned on my part, but ended up being taken to a house church in an apartment in China, and they were doing a Bible study, and they were doing it the same way we do it. It's hilarious. They would ask the same type of questions, and they would explore things the same way. But at the end of it, we were praying, and it was so cool. I prayed for God to bless China, and they prayed for God to bless the United States. And I had my iPad, and I showed them all the photographs in the fire, and I said, this is what happened to me, and I just want to challenge people. I'm in China to challenge you to build what counts. And they said, it is a divine appointment that you came tonight to speak to us. And did the same thing in Sri Lanka at a chapel, and they were like, can we get the pictures and all this stuff. So I thought, well, God's not wasting this. That's really cool.
Yeah. So, what would you say was one of the things that helped you heal or get through this situation? What helped you heal, become, you know?
Yeah. I think several things. Personally, over the years, I feel like I prepared for this time. In fact, when I was standing there looking at the column of smoke, I'm like, all right, Webb, you've prepared all your life for this moment. We're going to see if you pass or fail. I mean, really, that was going through my mind. But I would have to say also, the way we were loved immediately and how people took care of us and reached out to us, and I felt like God took care of us and all that. It was really interesting how it just showed love. You know, you wouldn't expect that, but for us, it did. And I had an encounter in the ash, and I was digging, and I was by myself one day, and the encounter forced me to stop and say, hey, you know, if I think about it, every day of my life, God's provided for me. He promised he would, and he has. And here I am sitting here with everything burned, but all my needs for today are provided for. And so I think that those kind of thoughts came to mind, and we just felt, you know, it's not the end of the world. We'll make it. I'm going to miss some of this stuff, but I'm going to make it. And it's so interesting how God's provided.
Yeah, it sounds like, and correct me if I'm, or confirm that I'm right, it sounds like a lot of your Christian or God or belief beforehand helped you get through on the backside.
Yeah.
Right. That your belief on the front side helped you on the backside.
Absolutely. So, can I unpack that for a second then?
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and I realize that there are a lot of skeptics, and you know, not everybody accepts that, and that's fine. So I produced buildwhatcounts.com as a companion to the book No Man's Fire, and on that website, I've got a page for skeptics, and it's very respectful. I mean, if you're a skeptic, that's fine. I understand it. I'm not going to call you names. Let's just have a dialogue. That was my approach. But I would say that by virtue of my belief in what God has for my life, I always felt that there was a plan. I'm very plan-oriented, that God's got a purpose and a plan, and that I really believe, you know, eschatologically, this stuff is going to disappear. I mean, only God knows specific details, but we do know that there will be this cataclysm at some point, and the stuff is going to be gone. So if I fixate on stuff that's temporary, I'm losing out. And I've always loved the book Ecclesiastes, and, you know, Ecclesiastes talks about stuff on earth is vanity anyway, and you just have to be careful to enjoy stuff, but not to get so fixated that you worship your stuff. You know, you got to hold it with a light grip, like holding a bird or something. You don't want to choke it to death and kill it. So I have a great example, if I can do show and tell here, of vanity.
Sure.
Okay, so the house we were living in, one of the things I did, you know, being in Black Forest, you're required to have 5 acres. And we had a long drive up the hill to the house. And one of the previous owners had somehow put in solar-powered lights, you know, in the driveway. Well, everything was great except the solar-powered lights pretty much didn't work, and they didn't match. And I'm like, you know, I'm OCD enough. I'm going to try to get these babies to match. And furthermore, I'm going to see if I can bring them all back to life. And so we had extras in the garage. And anyway, I mixed and matched and went to Lowe's and got some extra stuff and spent, I don't know how long, but hours, I'm sure, trying to get each one of those stupid 30 solar panel lights to work and to all be perfect, you know, and everything else. So a few nights before the fire, I'm looking down the driveway and I could see, well, most of them are working, but not all of them. So I have to fix the recalcitrant lights. So after the fire, I go to the driveway, and I don't know how well you can see this, but this is one of the lights. And if you notice, it's kind of mangled and bent and everything from the heat. It's still there, but it's been damaged by the heat. So I keep this in my office as a symbol of vanity. All those hours spent on those stupid lights, and most of them melted. And, you know, so that's life. You know, you still have to do the work, but that's life.
It brings to my mind, where do you spend your time, right? Where are you spending your time? And it goes and building what matters, right? There's times that we get caught up in football games, sport. We spend all this time, this money, this energy, this effort on these things, and really, it's what, vapor, nothing but what's how Jesus put it, or somebody in the Bible talks about. It's just a wisp of wind,
Mm-hmm.
just like that. Wow.
Yeah, it's
So
like holding soap bubbles.
Yeah, yeah. So you initially you used the word nomad a couple times initially when in the start of our conversation. How would you define yourself now?
One of the challenges after the fire was to figure out where we're going to live and what we're going to do and all of that. So if I don't answer your question, get after me. I'll do my best. But let me preface it by saying we had to make decisions after the fire, and we were in temporary living quarters for quite a while until that got stressful. So we had to make a decision. And our decision was, we really like Colorado Springs. Our daughter and our son-in-law are in Colorado, and let's stay here. And eventually we got a townhouse. And so our decision has been to live here unless God really moves us, but also not to try to buy everything back that we once had, but to live kind of lean and mean and just be as light with possessions as we can so that we can focus on what really matters and not get tied up. So, and it's funny, we've done that for the most part, but a lot of what I have now are things that were given to me by other people. People right after the fire wanted to give us stuff. And so you have to turn it down because you don't have any place to put it for the most part. But even then after that, somebody's like, hey, I thought you might like this, or, that. So it's kind of funny how that works. So I don't think you ever perfect it, and I don't think that that's the goal, but I think it's a good reminder to live more lightly. And in our case also, because we've moved so much, we realized that for us to go somewhere new would be to try to put down roots and take a long time to integrate with the community and all that. And we already have a community of people we love here. So until God moves us, we feel like this is where we should stay.
Yeah. And it's interesting, like when you were starting back life over after the fire, you come to realize how little you actually need, mm-hmm. right? All the stuff that we have is kind of just stuff that you want, but you would do just fine with, some clothes and a kitchen and really you don't need as much. We don't need as much as we think we need.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And one of the things I did, to make a long story short, was I did work with the Voice of the Martyrs, working with persecuted people around the world. This is after the fire. And I went to Sudan a couple of years ago and got into the country and basically saw how the government was bombing people. And I was meeting refugees who had to immediately pack up and go. When I say pack up, basically grab their wagon and go. And not that I'm totally like that, but at least I can relate to that, because after the fire, all we had was our car and the clothes on our back. So it's like, I can kind of relate to what you're going through.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, you didn't answer my question. How would you define yourself now?
How would I define myself? This is intersected with this age of my life. So I define myself now as a person who, in the plan of God, has had a series of things that have been scrubbed away to drive to a more pure relationship with Him that's not based on externals. And also there's a sense, and this is, pardon the pun, incomplete, there's a sense of completion in life that I wonder if God doesn't take us to where, as the years go by, He's got this arc for our lives and He's trying to drive you toward a completion in terms of your holiness, your trust in Him, all these kind of things. And I've realized that battle continues. The fire didn't stop it. So I would say at this point in my life, I'm at the age where now I'm near the end of my career. Do I have value? I'm not really employable. There's age discrimination, so to speak, and all that. I mean, you basically are kind of thrown out with the wash, in a way. But in my personal life, before God, there's a sense of completion in my life. Okay, that stuff's gone, but and there was a faith test there, but the faith test has gotten worse since then. Because then it was more, we had this cataclysmic event. It was a one-off event that was over. Do you trust God? Whereas now it's, okay, can you trust me day by day in your life to know that I had you back then and I have you even in these years now when you're not as maybe productive as you once were. So I would say that's where I'm at now. And it's actually kind of a scary place to be honest.
Yeah, well, Yeah. I'm I'm reading The Shack, the book The Shack. I'm actually reading it, and I'm halfway through it, and it talks about how relying on God, relying on Papa, you know. So, what would you say are some of your next goals? What are you looking to do next? What are some of the goals that you have?
Yeah. An immediate next goal that's more specific would be I want to write more. When you write a book, you want to write more books. And I mean, I've written technical books like a dissertation and stuff like that. But as far as Nomad's Fire, that was unusual. And so I'm thinking about what should I do next. I've talked to people about different kind of books, which I could go into more detail on. But, do I write kind of Nomad's Fire Part 2? Okay, faith then, faith now kind of thing. So that's on my mind. The other thing is really I'm wrestling with how do I maximize my impact in terms of my experience, wisdom, technical knowledge, all these things. How can I do that now? And that's, so my goal is to answer that and to have more clarity on that and really have that activate. And it gets harder as you get older, and I'm in.
Why would you say that?
I think it gets harder because I think in a society that values the young, they don't value the old as much. Like a friend of mine in Oklahoma who was a music director for his church and got bounced out when he turned 30 because he aged out. It's like, well, I'm not quite there, but it's still, that's part of the challenge. I think we're a society. I don't like this, but I think we emphasize the young over the old. We value the young over the old, and I think there's a challenge to figure out what it is for the older. And I'm still healthy and functional. And I have more wisdom than I ever have, more experience. So, how do you use that? That's the question.
That is a great question. That is a really good question, and I would like to help you discover that. So, going back to you gave us some what you're looking to do is write more books, maximize your impact, use your wisdom, and you said you told one of your challenges of not being appreciated as an older person. Are there any other roadblocks, anything standing in your way, anything that you can identify?
That's a big one. Another one, this is getting pretty transparent, but simultaneous with all of this, one of the intersections of my life professionally is that the community I've been working in, which I will say this and we could get more blunt, but I'll just put it this way. In the evangelical parachurch community, there are a lot of issues. And this has happened simultaneously with me burning out in that community. And I'm a specialist in board governance, but I've seen so many different issues of integrity and everything else that between the fire and that and some other things, I'm just tired. And that's one of my biggest prayer dialogues with God is, God, I'm tired. What does this mean? What do I do? Yeah.
One of my prayers recently has been that the shackles of religion would be broken. Yeah. Religion has done a lot of damage. Whatever that religion is, has done a lot of damage to a lot of people. Yeah. Well, as we start to close out here.
If I can add, you don't necessarily have to start a 501c3 organization to minister. And my specialty is 501c3s. I mean, this afternoon I was emailing with someone who basically wants to pull away from a group that did a takeover of her organization, and so I'm dealing with that. That's what I do. But I want to tell people, hey, look, if you want to minister, just get out and minister. You don't have to necessarily have a formal structure for that.
Yeah. And that's what I see as far as GLOW, growth and development. It's an opportunity to minister on several levels, mental mindset, health, nutrition, relationships and marketing, all tied together with heart and flow. I'm ministering to people, and that I see it as a forum. I really do. Yeah. Real quick, do you want to give the YouTube of, you have a YouTube video out there of you going through the ashes, I believe. Do you want to share that?
Do you have it there? I'll have to call it up, which I can do.
Do you want to show your pictures?
Let me show my pictures. Let's see if we can share this. I have to figure out how I did this. Okay, gallery view. Okay, share. Hey, there we go. We might be able to pull this up. Okay, can you see that?
Not yet.
Okay, it's on the main screen. Let me shift it over. Are you seeing anything of it?
I've seen a white line.
How about now?
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm running two different screens. It's on the other one. Is it full screen or close enough?
It's perfect. Yep, perfect. I see your American flag waving right there. Wow.
Yeah, so what this was taken from a helicopter from a Denver news station. The Black Forest fire started down the ravine from our house, probably because a couple of workmen were burning building materials in a fireplace. We had high winds that afternoon, obviously extremely dry, and so the sparks flew out the neighborhood, and ours was one of the first houses to go. So the helicopter got down there pretty quickly, and because we were one of the first to go and our house was burning, it showed this footage. So we actually saw this that afternoon, and then I have other footage of the house burning, other photos, but that's kind of the legendary one. We saw it on the local news that afternoon, and that's what we saw for a couple of years, actually. Yeah, there were two American flags there. I'll show you the other one in just a second, but that one actually survived, and the garage imploded, basically. It all fell in, and when we got to the house site a week later, we saw that flag propped up by the firemen because it was far enough away from the house it didn't burn. So yeah.
Yeah, and it looks like the wind was blowing away from it.
At the time, yeah. So you see in the far right upper corner, that's the balcony we were sitting on when I said, hey, I could live here forever. And that day, very hot day, I had left the bathroom windows open. We had no air conditioning. We were at 7,300 feet. So bathroom window was open. But basically, we drove out of that garage, leaving our life, not knowing it at the time. But that day we did. Normally, my wife or I would have been at the house. So one of the blessings was that we were both out together that day, and we weren't worried about the other. You know, is the other one alive? You know, I can't get a hold of him or her. And you know, you got to think about it since you're into situational awareness and stuff. I had an evacuation list on my phone that I had done the year before with Waldo Canyon, and I had put it on there so I didn't have to think about what to evacuate. I would just go down through the list. But, you know, it's a two-story house. My office is in the far corner downstairs. Am I going to run upstairs to get my phone and my wallet, or am I going to just run out the door, you know, running through the woods with 50-mile-an-hour winds blowing the fire, you know, in my direction? So we just felt blessed we weren't there.
Yeah, yeah. Is there another one you want to share?
There are two more. Can you see this one?
Okay. It looks the same.
No. Okay, this is weird. Can you see it now?
Not yet.
Okay. Let me go back to share. Oh, I see what happened. This is crazy. You should be able to see it now.
Yes, I do. Okay.
All right. So you're wondering, what in the world is that? Well, that's the rock in front of the house, and the black smudge, to cut a long story short here, that is the other American flag that caught on fire and fell down. It was nylon, and it basically melted in place. We didn't know what that smudge was until I saw, you can see a little bit of red in there, a little tiny bit of blue, and I realized I was looking at the grommets of the flag, and that was the other American flag.
Wow.
The tube underneath the flag there, can you guess what that metal tube is?
No, I cannot.
Okay, you're looking at all that's left of a Daniel Defense AR.
Whoa.
Yeah, it bent and rusted. That's how hot the stupid fire was. All the furniture melted off of it, but you know, that's what's left of the barrel.
And the upper, right? There's the upper there too?
Yeah, well, you can see the chamber there, the breech.
Yeah,
you can see
okay.
the suppressor on the end on the right, and that's it. Yeah. Okay,
Wow.
so let me come back. I'm going to show you the next one. I've got one more for you.
Okay.
Okay, can you see that one?
Oh, yes. Wow.
Yeah, so that's the aftermath, obviously. The ridge line in the back is Rampart Range. In the photo, you probably can't see it, but you can see the Air Force Academy Chapel to the left of the American flag. All the big stuff, that's basically metal from, like, I see a filing cabinet, duct work, refrigerator, dishwasher, but basically everything else was turned to ash. The upstairs had a master bedroom, and it had a king-size bed. All the coils fused together and fell down basically into my study. So it was crazy going through all that stuff.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine.
It just shows that's kind of the ultimate destiny of the stuff, so we have to prepare.
Yeah.
So,
wow. Well, thank you very much for sharing.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much for sharing. Well, I appreciate your time, and we're gonna put this out there and let people learn about your book, and they can find more about you. Where can they find more about you? Let me ask that.
Yeah, if you go to buildwhatcounts.com, you'll see my story, and you refer to the video. It's on the homepage of buildwhatcounts.com. I have different helps there if somebody's suffering or if they're skeptic or whatever. I also have a page full of pictures from the fire. So the idea is it goes along with the book, and there's a way to contact me from that website as well.
Awesome. So buildwhatcounts.com.
Right.
Awesome. Well, Sid, I appreciate it, sir. You have a blessed day, and I thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you, Titus. I appreciate it. Take care.